Hey, have you ever wondered about all the different kinds of animals out there and how scientists categorize them? It's fascinating once you get into it because there's a whole system to classify animals based on how they look, behave, and evolve. So, let me explain it in a simple way. We live on a planet that's home to millions of species of animals, and to make sense of this, scientists have divided the animal kingdom into different groups or categories. It helps us understand how these animals are related to each other and how they've adapted to survive in various environments. Each of these categories is unique in its own way, and once you get the hang of it, you'll start seeing why they fit together the way they do. Let's start with mammals, which we're most familiar with, right? Humans are mammals, so it's kind of a no-brainer for us, but what makes a mammal a mammal? Mammals are warm-blooded animals, meaning they can control their body temperature regardless of the environment. Unlike reptiles or fish, mammals don't need to rely on the sun to stay warm. Also, mammals have hair or fur, and one of the key things is that female mammals feed their babies with milk. That's a pretty special trait when you think about it. Take the blue whale, for example. It's the largest animal on Earth, but it's still a mammal because it gives birth to live young and feeds them milk. Same with elephants. These gentle giants might seem so different from us, but they share these characteristics with humans. Another thing that makes mammals interesting is that they tend to have complex brains. Think about animals like dolphins or elephants. They are highly intelligent and social, showing emotions like grief or empathy, much like we do. Now moving on to birds, they're another category that most people are familiar with. What makes birds stand out are their feathers. Almost all birds can fly, though not all. For instance, penguins and ostriches are birds, but they can't fly at all. What's cool about birds is that they lay hard-shelled eggs and have beaks instead of teeth. Birds are warm-blooded like mammals, so they can live in a variety of climates. Think about the peregrine falcon. It's known as the fastest animal on Earth because when it's diving to catch its prey, it can reach speeds over 240 miles per hour. Then there are birds like the hummingbird, which are tiny but mighty pollinators, helping flowers bloom and food crops grow by transferring pollen. And don't forget, birds like vultures play a crucial role in keeping our environment clean by eating dead animals and preventing the spread of diseases. Then there are reptiles. These guys are cold-blooded, which means they rely on the environment to regulate their body temperature. You've probably seen lizards basking in the sun. Well, that's them trying to warm up. Reptiles are covered in scales, and most of them lay eggs. Some of the more familiar reptiles are snakes, lizards, turtles, and crocodiles. Crocodiles are ancient creatures that have been around for millions of years, and they haven't changed much because they're perfectly adapted to their environment. The Komodo dragon, on the other hand, is the largest lizard in the world and lives in Indonesia. It's a fierce predator and even has venomous saliva that helps it hunt. Now let's talk about amphibians, which are super interesting because they live part of their lives in water and part on land. Amphibians, like frogs and salamanders, start off in water as larvae with gills, and then they go through metamorphosis to become air-breathing adults. So they have this whole life cycle that involves a major transformation. One cool example is the axolotl, a type of salamander that never actually completes its metamorphosis. Instead, it stays in its juvenile water-dwelling form throughout its life. Amphibians are also very sensitive to environmental changes, so when their populations start to decline, it's usually a sign that something is wrong with the ecosystem, like pollution or habitat destruction. Fish are another huge group in the animal kingdom. They live in water and breathe through gills. They come in all shapes and sizes, from the tiny clownfish, like the one from Finding Nemo, to massive creatures like the great white shark. Fish are cold-blooded too, like reptiles, and many of them lay eggs, though some species give birth to live young. The interesting thing about fish is how they've adapted to survive in different environments. For example, salmon are born in freshwater rivers, but they spend most of their lives in the ocean, only to return to the exact river where they were born to lay their own eggs. How wild is that? Then there's the world of insects, which is by far the largest group of animals on the planet. There are more insects than all other animals combined. Insects have 3 body parts: head, thorax, and abdomen, and 6 legs. They have an exoskeleton, which means their skeleton is on the outside of their body. Bees are a great example of insects, and they play a massive role in our ecosystem by pollinating plants. Without bees, we wouldn't have many of the fruits and vegetables we rely on. Then you've got insects like butterflies, which are not just beautiful but also important pollinators. Their life cycle is fascinating. They start as caterpillars and then undergo a complete transformation into butterflies. It's one of nature's most stunning metamorphoses. Lastly, there are arthropods, which include not just insects but also spiders, crabs, and centipedes. These animals have jointed legs and a tough outer shell called an exoskeleton. Spiders are probably the best-known arthropods and are expert predators. They help control insect populations by trapping their prey in webs. Then, there are crustaceans like crabs and lobsters, which live mostly in water and are important both ecologically and economically, as many people rely on them as a food source. Crustaceans play an important role in the aquatic food chain, feeding on algae, plankton, and smaller animals, while also being a key food source for larger marine creatures. So, when you think about it, the animal kingdom is like this massive, interwoven system where each group has its role. Whether it's a tiny bee pollinating flowers or a massive whale keeping the ocean ecosystem in check, every animal has a purpose. Scientists have done an amazing job categorizing animals in a way that helps us understand how life on Earth works and how we can protect it. It's not just about learning names and traits, but about understanding how we're all connected through the natural world.